gore mo nakong ile ke go boletse gore nna le wena tla be re ntse re tla go tsamaya teng fela fa tla be re na jalo le re Orapeleng Matshediso yo ile gore o tle go dira big review mo letsatsi la gompieno mme ene o tle gore tlhalosetsa sentlentle mo gaetse gore ha re bua ka book review re bua ka eng tota ebile ke solo fela gore o tle go nna ntse re rotloetsa ra itse mo gaetse gore go na le batho ba bangwe ba ileng gore ga nke ba bala dibuka le seng batho ba bangwe ga ba bale ya no ba tlotla nna ntse re rotloetsa gore re direng tota gone ebile re itse gore go na le batho ba ileng gore ba na le knowledge e ko tlase mo gaetse se ka ba le gore go bala go ya go ntse gore ba mo dinako mo gaetse a re dire fela jana mo gaetse nna le wena e le meraro fela fa metsotso go tloga mo ureng ya bongwe ebile se le ba le gore se ke le gato la rona la bofelo la thulaganyo ya maitemogelo re tle go dira fela jana mo gaetse nna le wena teng fela fa ke checka ka fa le re Orapeleng gore a o siame tota gore nna le ene re ka tsena fela mo moyeng a o siame re raka koa
no re ke tse tšhono ke dumedise baretsi ba N14 district radio station no ke siame go ka tswelela ka interview
mo gaetse se ka ba le bala gore re mo amogetse ka fa re Orapeleng Matshediso mo letsatsi la gompieno mo gaetse o go dumedise ke solo fela gore wena ko le nteng ka koa wa amogetse madume a rona mo gaetse a re dire fela jana re tsene ka tlhamalalo mo pisanong ya rona ka fa re se ka ra senya nako se ka ba le bala gore tota gone nako yone ga ena mogatla ga gona gore o ka itshwara ka mogatla ebile e se ka ba ra letlela gore e reporte ka fa pefong re Matshediso ke go amogetse le nna majino tlhe mo station sa rona sa loago N14 district FM ebile o setse o dumedise baretsi ka fa nka go botsa fela mo letsatsi la gompieno gore maitlhomo magolo a dirileng gore o tle ka fa mo N14 district FM ke eng tota gone
no maitlhomo magolo a gore ke be ke tlile ka kwano ke go tla go share my views with the society about the importance of book reviews because you would remember that many African series book reviews are important because providing us with an avenue to can dissect the society and deal with the socio-economic situation that of course have bedeviled our African societies.
mo gaetse ke a solo fela gore gone o tlile tlhaloso ya gore ke maitlhomo a magolo a gore re Matshediso be re na le ene ka fa mo station sa rona sa loago N14 district FM teng fela fa mo Vryburg ke eng tota mo gaetse a re dire fela jana re Matshediso wena jaaka o tlile jalo ka book review mo letsatsi la gompieno mo N14 district FM wena ya nong ke a go neela ke go alela tapete mo gaetse gore wena o re fe dijo tse ileng go rutle ka tsone ka fa o ntshe go gotlhe tota gone o bue go utlwala go tala ka seatla tshono ke ga go rra
no ke a leboga ke leboge ke dumedise le baretsi ko ba leng teng gotlhe mo karolanong ya rona ya district le beyond ke simolotse so se sa go reviewa dibuka mo ngwageng o ha o no simolola morago ga gore ke ipotse dipotso di le dintsi gore re reka dibuka ra di bala re ya di university ra study ra boa me there is no role ya gore re tshameke mo society sa rona go tlhabolola society le go fatlhosa setšhaba sa rona ka kitso re etseileng go tswa go dithutong tsa go ditheong tsa thuto e kgolwane yaanong ke ka boripana when re na le COVID-19 I came with the initiative ya go reka dibuka because we were locked as per the regulations in our homes. And I felt, no, let me just buy books per month, one book per month and read. And after reading, of course, I felt that, no, what is the use of accumulating knowledge and not sharing it with the society after accumulating knowledge? But what also motivated me to also review books was the fact that in 2019, I studied, of course, a course called Good Governance in Africa with the then Thabo Mbeki African Leadership Institute, which there was also a module that was dealing with civil society organizations. And later on, of course, I then enrolled my master's in Pan-African Development with the University of Johannesburg. And there were two critical modules that, of course, also inspired me to review books as part of course, sharing knowledge with the society. One, there was a module on social policy. You can't speak about social policy and speak about the social development. You can't speak about social policy and not speak about the existing social movement in the society and their role. And of course, there was also a module on critical development theories, which focuses on how do we explain the fact that Africa, having been so rich in terms of minerals and human resource, but still remains, its citizens or residents remains impoverished. So how do you then explain that? There are theories that can be able to explain that particular situation. Then we felt that let's go and review books that of course speak to this particular situation and explain to the people. And the agenda here is to reignite the voice of civil society in the society and in the development of our continent. Because without civil society, leaders of our continent will continue to ignore their socio-economic realities and not actually advance development. And as a result of that, we experience a lot of insurgents in our continent. Young people who do not have jobs, they end up, of course, being recruited by insurgents who cause instability on the continent. I mean, I will make a practical example. The research has proven that by 2050, Africa as a continent would have surpassed China and India individually in terms of population. Now, the question comes, Africa still remains the most youthful continent in the world. But the question is that if African leaders will not focus on investing on these young people, they would not harness the dividends of this particular demographic profile of the youth. And I can tell you, if you make projections, it means in 2050, 2040s, it means the world will be looking to Africa for workforce, because many continents on in the world are facing aging population.
Yeah, mogatso ke a solofela gore ke go utlwile ka fa re Matshediso ke utlwile fa le mo pueng ya gago o bua gore go dira this thing you are sharing with the society ke motho ka go botsela ka boripana fela gore o e share yang le society to reveal that book.
Yeah, no, what you do, what I do, I came with the initiative. I started, of course, with the first review in Bloemhof at Anglican Church. Let me clarify the point why I decided to take my book reviews to the churches. I have realized that I wanted my book reviews to be unique. Unique in a sense that one, I've taken these books review to the churches to make a statement. And whichever church that I go to, the book review is not meant for that particular church. It's meant for the society in general. But I address from the pulpit, making a statement and a call to pastors and all leaders of the different churches to start preaching liberation theology. Because through liberation theology, that's when you create participatory citizenry. Citizens participate when they are conscientized. But when you preach a theology that makes citizens passive, you end up having batubare no natsale hatsi ga kena sepele tsone nantlo aka ikole godimong e sa giwang ka diatla. I'm not against any spiritual practices, but I'm saying the reality is that we are also living here. There is the history of black liberation theology is well documented in 1960s in our continent, including here in South Africa, even during United Democratic Front. Many pastors participated and their congregation participated. It can't be that at this point in time, the church becomes silent. Let me just say something that I know it might raise controversy, but it is not controversy, it's a reality. I had a conversation with one of the pastors, of course, last year when I was attending one conference of pastors. I asked the question that, the church cannot be quiet when employees or workers in the country are fighting for increase in terms of their salaries, where the government has agreed that is going to increase and the government decide. But the church becomes silent when these people are on the street because of the cost of living is too high for these particular workers, who by extension are your congregants. But as a result of that, a church decides to be silent and be neutral. It is Archbishop Desmond Tutu who once said, if you become neutral in the situation of injustices, you have chosen the side of the oppressor. Now, the very same congregants who are workers striking there for what is due to them because the government has actually made a commitment, the church remains silent. But month end, the church is also expecting something from you as part of the contribution. I'm not anyhow saying people should not make contribution. I must be understood in context. I'm just saying a church has always been there, the voice of refugee for those who are experiencing social injustices in the society, and the church voice must rise. I recently attended the 6th Chief Albert Lituli lecture in UNISA, and what inspired me to attend that is because when you check what was the theme of that particular lecture, the theme was, where is the church? Revisiting the role of the church in the modern society. And that on its own, it means there is a dead silence of a church in the socio-economic situation. I can even go as far as quoting a scripture in the Bible. When you read the book of Hebrews chapter 6, it is quite clear that it says a church, when you read it with a broader understanding, it says a church must not only end in terms of teaching elementary teachings about the death and birth of Christ and baptism. It has to go beyond that, and that going beyond that is to ensure that it becomes voice of the voiceless and voice of the oppressed in the society.
Yeah, mogaetso ska ba lebala gore ka fa ke somele botlhano fela metsotso go tloga mo ureng ya bongwe tota gone ke le gato la rona la bofelo se ebile se lebala gore o reditse jalo N14 District FM tse ke tsa malwena ka fa ke le the real Majino ebile se lebala gore nna lwena re tsa majalo le re Matshediso teng fela fa a tla go bua jalo ka big review mo letsatsi la gompieno, mme ke solo fela gore gone re motlwile go tlala ka seatla mogaetso gore tota gone o tsamaile thata mogaetso ebile ke utlwa ka fa a bua ka di temala tsa mo Bibeleng go lo gongwe tabele moruti re Matshediso mogaetso a re dire fela jana re Matshediso ke utlwe o bua thata gore dikereke o ile wa ya jalo go dikerekeng go ya go dira dialo book review. Ke ne ke batla go botsa fela gore jaaka re a re ntse re le mo lefatsheng le re tshela mo go lone le ebile re a re ntse re bona gore botlhoka tiro bo go godimo ebile re a re ntse re bona gore dio tse dintsi tse le go dia dintsi di diragala mo lefatsheng le dia dintsi di affecta thata basha ba rona ka fa yaanong ke ne ke batla go botsa fela gore a go lo gongwe a utlwe wa tsamaya wa phuta basha fela wa tla go ba tlhalosetsa fela jalo ka book review kgotsa wa tlhalosetsa fela ka tsamaya ya bone gore tshwantse ba tsamaya bogolo re ntse re itse thata gore tota gone batho ba rona ga se batho ba ile gore ba bantse ba bala dibuka yalo yaanong ke batla go tlhaloganya fela gore a go lo go mutle ba tsamaya wa kopana le basha fela jaaka re itse gore tse dintsi tse diragala mo lefatsheng dia dintsi di affecta thata matshelo a bone.
Yeah, no, there will be that program here specifically to certain sections of the society. But currently, I made a plan, an initiative of visiting all the sub-districts of our district. Like I said, I started in Bloemhof at the Anglican Church on the 20th of August. I was reviewing a book written by Chinua Achebe, A Man of the People. And now this is my second book review that will be, of course, held here in Vryburg at the Methodist Church in Vryburg. Of course, I will be reviewing a book written by Ghanaian Aiwe Ahma's book, which is titled The Beautiful Ones Are Not Yet Born. So it's part of enlightening the society. So youth are also invited to attend all these particular book reviews. But you will also remember that, of course, there is no, of course, currently monetary support to can be everywhere at times. So what I do is that after a period of a month, I visit the one district, sub-district, so on and so forth. So from next year, January, of course, I'll be revisiting the remaining sub-district, Greater Taung, Kagisano Molopo, as well as Mamusa. So those book reviews, of course, are going to be there. But the intentions of these book reviews are not only to enlighten the society, it's also to create a culture of reading within our society to ensure that we establish book clubs, so that these book clubs are going to, because it must not just be an event, I'm just planting a seed. And beyond that, all the people that I organized, like in Bloemhof, I left them with this seed. I told them that this seed is to make sure that there's a book club, and these book clubs must not just be launched for the sake of launching. This book club must come up with campaigns, must come up with literacy campaigns. When you've got sometimes in South Africa, you would find that sometimes you have the campaign where department responsible for libraries will be saying, this is a library week. How do we make sure that this library week makes an impact? That book club, of course, partners with the department relevant and also ensure that our libraries are equipped with books that are responding to our socio-economic situations. But it will become the responsibility of those book clubs to engage with the librarians and to engage with the department responsible, so that books that are bought are books that are also addressing different situational challenges in our societies. Yes, there might also be books for leisure and so on and so forth, but those books must balance in terms of knowledge. I will make a practical example. Currently, research proves that more than 80% of our artifacts that were stolen by colonizers during the slavery and the colonization of our continent, they are still outside the continent. They are still in the former colonizers, or maybe I should say colonizers, because the former is another word, because we are still colonized one way or the other. But those particular artifacts are there. Let me tell you, the narrative that is given to the world about our continent, Africa, because of those artifacts that are outside the continent. The narrative that the colonizers want to give to the world is that Africans, prior to colonialism, they were not thinkers, they were not scientists on their own right. Therefore, bringing of those artifacts back on the continent is going to rewrite our history in terms of how we are perceived as Africans.
Yeah, magaitso na lana re mo go teng fela fa re dira soma mabedi le bongwe fela metsotso go tloga mo ureng ya bongwe ke a solofela gore ga itla go tsama teng fela fa re a re lebile jalo bokhutlo ba puisano ya rona ka fa le re Matshediso, mme ke solofela gore gone o utlwile o itsetse ka tsebe thata mogaitso re Matshediso a re dire fela jana re a go bokhutlong ke bue fela ra itse mogaitso gore batho ba rona ga ise batho ba ileng gore ba rata go bala ebile segolo jang re le mo botshelong bo ileng gore re ka bobitsa jalo re ke ba technology batho gantsi o tla fitlhela ba focusite thata mo di phone tsa bone ke technology e leng gore re mo go ene ka fa yaanong ke ne ke batla go botsa fela gore molaetsa wa gago ko batho ko basheng or ko bathong ba botlhe ba ileng gore o ka ba rotloetsa go molaetsa wa gago wa thotloetso gore batho ba kgone ba bale dibuka ke o feng ko basheng ba rona le ko bathong ba rona or ko society ya rona.
Yeah, no, the importance or message that I would actually say to our people in general is that let's read, because it is through reading that you empower yourself and become a better person. Being a better person, it means now it leads to creativity, it leads to innovation. So you don't only rely on government to provide you. You come up with innovation because you are knowledgeable. And secondly, you cannot be able to keep the elected leaders of our continent accountable if you do not have knowledge of what is really happening. The reality is that many African leaders post-colonial independence, you would read even Frantz Fanon in his book, The Riches of the Earth. He says, the very same leaders who were mobilizing the people behind liberation projects are the ones today who are silencing the critical voice. Now the critical voice must rise, but it must not just rise. It must be a critical voice that, of course, understand the social dynamic of our continent, understand what are the challenges of our continent, so that when leaders are selected or elected, they understand that, of course, yes, we must not be leader-centric. You know, the challenge with our continent is that we have been leader-centric for quite some time. That is why when certain leaders come and go, the ideas live with them, because we have not made a necessary effort to ensure that we build people-to-people relations beyond our borders. So that I will make practical example. The former President Thabo Mbeki and the former President Obasanjo of Nigeria, they played critical role, and other leaders, to develop a new partnership for Africa's development. And I can tell you that today, the crop of African leaders today, they don't give it the necessary support that is required to ensure that Africa is developed. I mean, recently there was a second African Union Studies symposium organized by University of Johannesburg a few weeks ago, and in that particular there was a discussion about the development of our continent. And when you check, many presenters actually could reveal that there is serious challenge of development on our continent, but our mineral resources continue to leave the country, the continent, sorry. That is why some people are even asking a question: why every time when Africa wants to rise, it has to analyze or assess itself from either east or west, and not actually see itself as a future critical role player within the international geopolitical system.
Yeah, mogaetsho nna lona ntse re le mo go teng fela fa o ska ba lebala gore tota gone fa re ya re ntse re tlile mo bokhutlong. And ke batla go botsa re Matshediso, ke tle o bua ka moso gore go na le week review e leng gore go na le kwa go dirang teng, ke ne ke re o re be fela mo leseding gore go tla bo go diragalang.
Yeah, no, tomorrow at 4:30 in Vryburg at the Methodist Church of Southern Africa, we'll be having a book review. As I've indicated, The Beautifuls Are Not Yet Born. We will, of course, have that book review and also have a conversation. I normally see them as conversation because I don't think I possess any monopoly of wisdom. But I believe that through the battle of ideas, that where solutions will come. We've got many people who are even more better experienced and more equipped than myself. I am not better than anybody. I am just like anybody, but I felt that something has to start because the former President Thabo Mbeki, when he was addressing us, when we were still studying at his African Institute, he indicated that we are not here to produce people who will theorize with this information. We want to produce agents of change, and it has to start now. All of us, we must be agents of change. We must be the midwives of social transformation, and it has to start through reading, because Professor Chilisi Marwala in one of his books says those who do not know should not lead, and I think those who do not read should not lead, because they will not assist to propel the society forward, more so under this fourth industrial revolution. Thank you.
Yeah, mogaetsho na lwana ntse re le mo go teng fela fa ke a solofela gore lo tlile go tlala ka seata mogaetsho gore a re baleng dibuka tota o ska ba dula fela o sa bale ebile gantsi re ntse re itemogela gore batho ba bangwe o nkutlwe ba bangwe ga ba motho a dirile fela feditse mo sekolong fela re o feditse kante thuto ga e golele o ya ntse o tsamela le one mogaetsho ebile gape ke a solofela gore o tlile gore re Matshediso ka mosho ka 4:30 ko Methodist Church ko Wesele tota gone mo Mosiapoa o tla ba dira jalo book review ka mosho a re mfela ka ko mogaetsho re go itseela ka tsebe re Matshediso tlhae ke go lebogile tota ka mosho le ka mosho ke solofela gore ga ise ga bohelo nna le wena re tla ka fa kgotsa ga ise ga bofelo o tla ka fa
No, ke lebogile ke tla go le sedimosetsa ka di processes tsa book review and mme ke tsa tšhono le go leboga this radio station for coming up with this initiative of supporting, of course, societal development. I really appreciate.
Yeah, mogaetsho na lwana re mo go teng fela fa ile somamabedi le bo robedi fela go tloga mo ureng ya bongwe e le legato la rona la bofelo le la thulaganyo e ya maitemogelo o ska ba le bala mogaetsho gore se ke N14 District FM nna le wena re le mo go teng fela fa mogaetsho re utlwile re kgaogana le re Matshediso fa mo tla bua gape re kopana le ene mo nakong e tlang tla re dire fela jana re Matshediso re mo tsamaise ka pina ke Jaruka always on time.